Commander Natalie Warren stood on the observation deck of Luna Station. Through the large window, she watched the prototype ship Defiance as it floated in space. The ship looked strange. It had angular metal plates sticking out at odd angles. Cooling systems were visible on the outside. Weapons seemed to be placed randomly across the hull. It did not look like a proper warship. Next to her stood Captain Eric Martinez. He would be the one to command this unusual vessel on its first mission. "It doesn't look like much, does it?" Eric said with a small smile. "The Arcturian ambassador told me yesterday that our ship is ugly and offensive to look at." Natalie nodded. "The Arcturians make their warships look like art pieces. We made ours to survive." She wasn't wrong. 3 years ago, humanity had nearly been wiped out when the Karsk Dominion attacked Earth without warning. The Karsk were a violent alien species that seemed to enjoy destruction. Only the timely arrival of the Galactic Concord fleet had saved Earth from complete destruction. The Galactic Concord was an alliance of 17 advanced alien civilizations. After saving Earth, they had invited humans to join as junior members. Now humanity was expected to help in the ongoing war against the Karsk. But the aliens wanted humans to follow their rules. Rules that had been unchanged for thousands of years. Rules about how ships should be built, how they should fight, and how they should look. Engineer Samuel Bell had other ideas. Sam walked onto the observation deck carrying a tablet computer. He looked tired. His eyes had dark circles under them and his uniform was wrinkled as if he had slept in it. Or more likely, hadn't slept at all. "Final system checks are complete," Sam said. "The Defiance is ready for its first test flight." "And the alien observers?" Natalie asked. Sam rolled his eyes. "They're still complaining. The Volmar representative keeps saying our power distribution system will explode. The Arcturian engineer refuses to even look at our engine room anymore. He says it gives him stress sickness." Eric laughed. "They said the same things when humans first showed them our fighter jets, and our submarines, and pretty much everything else we've built." 3 alien diplomats entered the observation deck. They moved with the careful steps of beings not entirely comfortable in Earth's gravity. The tallest was Ambassador Kreetal of the Volmar Collective. His skin was pale blue and his 4 eyes blinked at different times as he looked at the humans. "We must register a formal protest," Kreetal said. His translator device made his voice sound flat and mechanical. "This vessel violates 63 separate safety protocols established by the Concord Engineering Guild." Sam stepped forward. "With all due respect, Ambassador, those protocols were written for ships built by and for species very different from humans. Our world has higher gravity, more extreme weather, and more geological activity than any homeworld in the Concord. We've always had to build things differently." The second alien, a reptilian Zith named Sirvak, hissed softly. "Different is acceptable. Dangerous is not. Your shield generators are placed inside the hull rather than along the exterior framework. This defies basic defense principles." "It also allows for channeled energy distribution," Sam replied. "We can focus our shields where we need them most." The third alien, a small furred creature called a Pelman, spoke up. "Your weapons placement lacks symmetry and optimal firing arcs." "It also means we don't have any obvious weak points," Eric said. "Enemy ships won't know which sections to target first." Admiral Gregory Peters walked onto the deck. Everyone stood straighter at his arrival. The Admiral was in his 60s with gray hair and a face marked by years of difficult decisions. He had led Earth's defenses during the Karsk attack 3 years ago. "I see we're having the same argument again," Gregory said calmly. He looked at the 3 aliens. "Your concerns are noted, ambassadors, but the Defiance will launch as scheduled in 3 hours." Kreetal's upper eyes narrowed. "The Concord provided Earth with proven ship designs. Why not use them?" "Because they're designed for conquered species," Gregory replied. "Humans think differently. We fight differently. We build differently." He gestured toward the odd-looking ship. "The Defiance may not match your expectations, but it matches our needs." After the aliens left, Gregory turned to the 3 humans. "The Concord High Command is watching this project closely. Many of them believe humans aren't ready for deep space operations. They think we're too aggressive, too unpredictable. They're not wrong, Natalie said. Gregory smiled. No, they're not. But that's exactly why we might be the ones to finally push back the Karsk. He looked at Eric. Captain Martinez, your orders are simple. Take the Defiance on a 3-week patrol of the outer colonies. Show our new allies that this ship can function as designed. Eric nodded. And if we encounter any Karsk ships? The Defiance is armed and combat-ready, Gregory said. Defend yourself if attacked. But remember, this is primarily a demonstration mission. We need to prove that our approach to shipbuilding has merit. 3 hours later, the Defiance's engines glowed blue as the ship prepared to leave Luna Station. On the bridge, Eric sat in the captain's chair. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. 40 humans and 5 alien observers made up the ship's complement. All systems ready, Captain, said Lieutenant Olivia Chen from the tactical station. Engineering reports the pulse drive is online, added Commander Daniel Wright, the ship's second-in-command. Eric took a deep breath. This mission was more than just a patrol. It was humanity's chance to prove they belonged among the stars. Take us out, Lieutenant Riley, Eric ordered the pilot. Half thrust until we clear the station's security zone. The Defiance moved slowly away from Luna Station. Its unusual shape made it look awkward, almost clumsy. But appearances could be deceiving. As the ship cleared the security zone, Eric smiled. Lieutenant Riley, bring the pulse drive online. Let's show our guests what this ship can really do. The Defiance's engines flared brightly. The ship accelerated at a rate that made the alien observers gasp in alarm. Their own ships would never subject their crews to such forces. But humans had evolved on a high-gravity world. They could handle it. Ambassador Cretal stumbled as the ship jumped forward. This acceleration exceeds safety parameters, he protested. For your species, perhaps, Eric replied. For humans, this is well within our tolerance. As the Defiance streaked away from Earth, a message came in from Admiral Peters. Show them what humans do best, break the rules and survive anyway. Little did they know that their chance would come sooner than expected. The Defiance was about to face a trial by fire that would either prove the worth of human innovation or demonstrate why the Concorde's rules had lasted for thousands of years. The ship that defied every rule was on its way to make history, one way or another. The Defiance had been on patrol for 5 days. The ship moved through space at a steady pace, checking the outer colonies as ordered. So far, the mission had been quiet. Some of the crew were even starting to feel bored. Lieutenant Olivia Chen sat at the tactical station on the bridge. Her job was to monitor the ship's sensors and weapons. She stifled a yawn as she watched the data flow across her screen. Then something caught her attention. She sat up straight and checked the readings again. Captain, Olivia called out. I'm detecting 3 ships that just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They're about 600,000 kilometers away and moving toward us. Captain Eric Martinez stood up from his chair. Can you identify them? Olivia's fingers moved quickly over her console. The energy signatures match Karsk destroyers, 3 of them. They're on an intercept course. The mood on the bridge changed instantly. Everyone became alert. The Karsk were the enemy. They attacked, without warning, and showed no mercy. Sound battle stations, Eric ordered. Shields up. Prepare all weapons. Alarms rang throughout the ship. Crew members who had been relaxing moments before now rushed to their combat positions. Commander Daniel Wright, the second-in-command, looked worried. Captain, we're outnumbered 3-1. Karsk destroyers are heavily armed. I'm aware of that, Commander, Eric said calmly. But the Defiance was built to handle situations like this. The 5 alien observers on the bridge were not so confident. Ambassador Cretal of the Volmar Collective looked terrified. His blue skin had turned almost white. Captain Martinez, Cretal said urgently, you must retreat immediately. This vessel cannot withstand Karsk weaponry. The design is fundamentally flawed according to all established military doctrine. Eric and Daniel shared a look. Well, Ambassador, Eric said with a small smile, it's a good thing we don't follow established doctrine then. Eric turned to the communications officer. Lieutenant Foster, send a message to Luna Station. Tell them we've encountered 3 Karsk destroyers and are engaging. Engaging? Ambassador Kretal's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. You cannot be serious, you must flee. Humans don't run at the first sign of danger, Ambassador, Eric replied firmly. Lieutenant Riley, set course directly toward the Karsk ships. The alien observers gasped. Even some of the human crew looked surprised. Sir, Lieutenant Riley said from the pilot station. Did you say toward the Karsk? I did, Lieutenant, Eric confirmed. Standard Concord tactics say we should keep our distance and try to hit them from afar, so the Karsk will be expecting that. We're going to do the opposite. Down in engineering, Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez received the order to prepare for combat maneuvers. She smiled. This was what the Defiance had been built for. Power up the pulse drive, she told her team. Prepare for irregular thrust patterns, remember your training. Back on the bridge, the main screen showed the 3 Karsk destroyers growing larger as the Defiance moved toward them. The enemy ships were sleek and deadly looking. They were painted deep red, the color of blood for many species. They're charging. Weapons, Olivia reported from Tactical. All 3 ships are preparing to fire. Steady, Eric said calmly. Lieutenant Chen, prepare to activate shield pattern alpha on my mark. The Karsk fired. Bright beams of energy shot toward the Defiance. Now, Eric ordered. Olivia pressed a sequence of buttons. The Defiance's shields activated, but not in the way conventional ships used them. Instead of creating a bubble around the entire ship, the Defiance focused all shield power on the front section, creating an extremely strong but narrow defense. The TIU, Karsk weapons hit the shield and flared brightly. The ship shook slightly but held firm. Shield strength at 92%, Olivia reported. The focus configuration is working. Ambassador Kretal stared in disbelief. Impossible. A conventional shield would have collapsed under that combined fire. That's why we don't use conventional shields, Daniel Wright explained. Human engineers realized we could never match the Karsk for raw power, so we found a way to use our power more efficiently. Eric nodded. Now for Phase 2, Lieutenant Riley. Activate the pulse drive. Pattern Bravo. Pattern Bravo, aye, sir, Riley acknowledged. The Defiance suddenly changed its movement. Instead of flying in a straight line, it began to jump in short, unpredictable bursts. The pulse drive was another human innovation. It allowed the ship to make micro-jumps that were too small to be considered true FTL travel, but large enough to confuse enemy targeting systems. On the Karsk ships, gunners struggled to track the erratic movement of the human vessel. Their second volley of shots went wide, missing the Defiance completely. They're firing where we should be, Communications Officer Alan Foster said excitedly. Not where we are. Exactly as planned, Eric said. Lieutenant Chen, prepare to return fire. Target the lead destroyer's propulsion systems. The Defiance's weapons were not the most powerful in the galaxy, but they had been placed at unusual angles that allowed them to fire from directions the Karsk wouldn't expect. The human ship launched its attack while still making unpredictable jumps. The lead Karsk destroyer took hits to its engines. The damage wasn't severe, but it was enough to slow the alien ship down. They're adjusting their tactics, Olivia warned. The 2 undamaged ships are splitting up, trying to flank us. Eric had expected this. Lieutenant Riley, execute maneuver. Delta, Lieutenant Chen, redistribute shields to cover our aft section. The Defiance suddenly stopped its erratic jumps and instead accelerated straight toward the damaged Karsk ship. This surprised the enemy, who had expected the human vessel to keep jumping. They think we're attempting a suicide run, Daniel observed. Let them think that, Eric replied. It'll keep them distracted. At the last possible moment, Lieutenant Riley pulled the Defiance into a tight turn that brought it underneath the damaged Karsk destroyer. The human ship fired upward as it passed, targeting the same damaged section as before. This time, the Karsk ship's engines exploded. The destroyer began to drift, its power systems failing. 1 down, Eric announced. 2 to go. The remaining Karsk ships fired continuously now, trying to hit the nimble human vessel. But the Defiance's unusual movement patterns and focused shields kept it safe. Captain, Olivia called out. I've detected a weakness in the second destroyer's shield pattern. They're cycling their shield frequencies in a predictable sequence. Can you time our weapons to exploit that? Eric asked. I think so. Olivia replied. Give me 30 seconds. The bridge crew waited as Olivia worked. The ship shook as it took a glancing hit from one of the Karsk vessels. Shield strength down to 63%, Daniel reported. We can't take too many more hits like that. Ready, Captain, Olivia announced. Firing solution complete. Fire at will, Lieutenant, Eric ordered. The Defiance fired a precisely timed series of shots. Each one hit the Karsk destroyer exactly as its shields cycled to their weakest point. The alien ship shuddered under the assault. Then, unexpectedly, its weapons went offline. Direct hit to their main power distribution node, Olivia reported with satisfaction. They can still move, but they can't shoot anymore. The third Karsk destroyer suddenly changed course. It was turning away from the battle. They're retreating, Daniel said in disbelief. The bridge crew cheered. The alien observers stood in stunned silence. They'll be back with reinforcements, Eric cautioned, quieting the celebration. Lieutenant Foster, send an updated status report to Luna Station. Tell them we've disabled 2 Karsk destroyers and request instructions. As the crew carried out his orders, Eric turned to Ambassador Kretal. So, Ambassador, still think our ship is fundamentally flawed? The alien diplomat's 4 eyes blinked slowly. I must reconsider my assessment, Captain. Your tactics defied all conventional wisdom, yet they were effective. That's what humans do best, Eric said with a smile. We defy convention, and somehow we make it work. News of the Defiance's victory over 3 Karsk destroyers spread quickly through the Galactic Concord. No one had expected a single human ship to defeat multiple Karsk vessels, especially not a ship that broke so many established design rules. 1 week after the battle, the Defiance returned to Luna Station. Captain Eric Martinez and his crew were welcomed as heroes. Admiral Gregory Peters personally greeted them when they docked. Excellent work, Captain, Gregory said, shaking Eric's hand. You've proven that our approach has merit. Thank you, sir, Eric replied. The ship performed even better than we hoped. Chief Engineer Rodriguez deserves most of the credit. Her pulse drive worked perfectly. Maria Rodriguez smiled proudly. I had a good team, sir. And Engineer Bell's original design gave us a solid foundation. Admiral Peters nodded. Well, your success has certainly caused a stir. The Concord High Command is sending a special representative to examine the Defiance. They want to understand how it was able to defeat Karsk ships using methods they've spent thousands of years insisting wouldn't work. When will this representative arrive? Eric asked. He's already here, Gregory replied. High Commander Zilthron of the Concord Defense Fleet arrived yesterday. He's waiting to inspect your ship. Eric tried not to show his surprise. High Commander Zilthron was one of the most senior military leaders in the entire Galactic Concord. For him to come personally was unprecedented. 2 hours later, Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez led a tour through the Defiance. High Commander Zilthron towered over the humans at nearly 8 feet tall. His skin was deep blue with faint patterns that seemed to shift in the light. 4 arms emerged from his torso, and his eyes were large and completely black. This is our engine room, Maria explained as they entered a large chamber filled with humming machinery. The pulse drive is there in the center. Zilthron stared at the engine with his unblinking eyes. Your ship should not function, he stated bluntly. The power distribution alone violates 3 fundamental laws of energy management that have been standardized across the galaxy for 12,000 years. Maria tried not to feel intimidated. With respect, Commander, those standards were developed by species whose physiological tolerances are very different from ours. Humans evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme climate variations. We're used to adapting systems that shouldn't work. Explain, Zilthron demanded. Maria pointed to various parts of the engine. Most Concord species come from worlds with stable environments. Your engineers design for consistency and reliability. Humans come from a world where conditions can change drastically within hours. We design for adaptability. The tour continued through the ship. In the weapons control room, Lieutenant Olivia Chen showed Zilthron how the Defiance's unusual weapon placement allowed for firing angles that confused enemy targeting systems. By placing weapons at seemingly random positions, we make it harder for enemies to predict which way we'll attack, Olivia explained. But this increases maintenance complexity by 47%, Zilthron noted. It is inefficient. Efficiency isn't always the top priority in combat, Olivia replied. Survival is. Later in the bridge, Captain Martinez explained the ship's unconventional shield system. Instead of creating a consistent shield bubble around the entire ship, we can focus our shield energy where it's needed most, Eric said. Yes, it leaves other parts of the ship more vulnerable, but it allows us to withstand concentrated fire that would overwhelm a conventional shield. Zilthron listened to all these explanations, but his expression remained impossible to read. When the tour was complete, he requested a private meeting with Admiral Peters and Captain Martinez. In Admiral Peters' office on Luna Station, Zilthron finally shared his thoughts. Your ship breaks every rule of starship design that the Concord has established over millennia, he began. It is inefficient. It requires more maintenance. Its power systems operate at the edge of safety parameters. Admiral Peters started to object, but Zilthron held up one of his 4 hands to silence him. And yet, the alien commander continued, it defeated 3 Karsk destroyers when our models predicted it would be destroyed within minutes. This requires further investigation. What kind of investigation? Eric asked cautiously. A practical demonstration, Zilthron replied. I want to see your ship in action against one of our own. Gregory and Eric exchanged surprised looks. You want us to fight a Concord ship? Gregory asked. A controlled exercise, Zilthron clarified. No actual weapons fire, but real combat maneuvers and targeting systems. I want to see how your unconventional methods fare against our best tactics. 2 days later, the Defiance faced the Eternal Vigilance, one of the Concord's most advanced cruisers. The alien vessel was 4 times the size of the Defiance and carried a crew of over 1,000. Its captain, Commander Velix, had fought in over 40 battles against the Karsk. The 2 ships faced each other in deep space, far from any civilian traffic. Their weapons were set to training mode, which meant they would register hits but not cause actual damage. This is a waste of time, Ambassador Kretal muttered on the bridge of the Defiance. After witnessing the battle against the Karsk, he had requested to remain on board for further observation. The Eternal Vigilance is the pride of the Third Fleet. It has never lost a combat exercise. There's a first time for everything, Eric replied with confidence. Lieutenant Riley, are you ready? Lieutenant Riley sat at the pilot's station. His hands hovered over the controls. Ready, Captain? Lieutenant Chen, shield configuration set? Olivia nodded. Yes, sir. All systems ready. Begin on high, Commander. Zilthron's mark, Eric ordered. From a separate observation vessel, Zilthron gave the signal to start the exercise. The Eternal Vigilance moved with impressive speed for its size. It launched a simulated attack with its main weapons, targeting the Defiance's engines. But the human ship was already moving. Lieutenant Riley didn't follow any standard evasion pattern. Instead, he responded with pure human instinct, making decisions that no alien AI could predict. They're targeting where combat algorithms say we should go, Olivia reported, watching her tactical display. But we're not following algorithms. The Defiance activated its pulse drive, making a series of short, quick jumps that left the larger ship's targeting system struggling to keep up. Their targeting efficiency is dropping, Daniel Wright observed from his station. They're missing by wider margins each time. The exercise continued. The Eternal Vigilance tried various tactics from the Concord Combat Manual. The Defiance countered with maneuvers that no one in the Concord had ever seen before. 5 minutes. Into the exercise, the Defiance had registered 15 successful hits on the Concord vessel. The Eternal Vigilance had yet to score a single hit on the human ship. This is impossible, Ambassador Kretal whispered, watching the tactical display in amazement. 1 minute later, the exercise ended. The Defiance had demonstrated complete tactical superiority over a ship 4 times its size and with far more advanced technology. Back on the observation vessel, High Commander Zilthron sat in stunned silence. Admiral Peters tried not to look too pleased. How? Zilthron finally asked. How is this possible? Humans have been fighting against overwhelming odds throughout our entire history, Gregory explained. We've never had the luxury of fighting. Fair? Your pilot did not follow any recognized combat pattern, Zilthrin noted. Lieutenant Riley wasn't following patterns at all, Gregory said. He was making intuitive decisions based on the situation as it changed. That's something humans excel at, adapting in the moment. Zilthron was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "The Concord has much to learn from humanity, it seems. Admiral Peters, I will be recommending that we establish a joint development program. We need to understand your unconventional methods better." Gregory smiled. "We would be honored to share our knowledge, High Commander. After all, we face the same enemy." As the Defiance docked back at Luna Station, the crew celebrated their victory. But Captain Martinez knew this was just the beginning. The Karsk would learn from their defeat and adapt their tactics. And somewhere out in the darkness of space, they were preparing something bigger and more dangerous than mere destroyers. The real test was yet to come. 2 months after the combat exercise with the Eternal Vigilance, the Defiance had become famous throughout the Galactic Concord. Many alien species were curious about the strange human ship that broke all the rules, yet somehow worked better than ships designed according to traditional methods. Captain Eric Martinez was called to an emergency meeting at Luna Station. When he arrived, he found Admiral Gregory Peters waiting with several high-ranking Concord officials. "Captain, we have a serious situation," Admiral Peters said. "The Karsk have developed a new weapon. They've already used it to destroy 2 inhabited planets in the Epsilon sector." Eric felt cold. "A planet killer?" "Yes. Our intelligence suggests they're planning to use it against major conquered worlds next," Gregory continued. "The Concord fleet is gathering to defend those worlds, but we need to know more about this weapon if we're going to stop it." A tall Volmar official stepped forward. Eric recognized him as Director Lorne Tal, head of Concord Intelligence. "We need to send a small fast ship deep into Karsk territory to gather information about this weapon," Lorne Tal explained. "The Defiance may be the only vessel capable of such a mission." Eric understood immediately. Because our unconventional design and tactics might confuse Karsk defenses. "Exactly," Gregory confirmed. "This is strictly volunteer. It's beyond dangerous." "The Defiance is ready," Eric said without hesitation. "My crew will volunteer as well, I'm sure of it." Eric was right. When he returned to the ship and explained the mission, every crew member agreed to go. Even the alien observers wanted to stay on board. Ambassador Kretal, who had once criticized every aspect of the Defiance's design, now insisted on remaining with the human ship. "I have seen what this vessel and its crew can do," he told Eric. "I believe you may succeed where a traditional Concord ship would fail." Eric gathered his senior officers to plan the mission. Security Chief Paul Evans would organize any ground operations they might need. Science Officer Stephanie Morris developed special sensor packages that could gather data on the Karsk weapon from a distance. Navigator Julia Blackwood had the most difficult job, plotting a course through what the Concord had labeled impassable space. "The Karsk have heavy defenses along all standard approach routes," Julia explained, showing a star map. "But there's this area here, near the Crimson Nebula. The radiation makes it dangerous, but our shield modifications should give us more protection than standard Concord ships." "How dangerous?" Eric asked. Julia hesitated. "Without special modifications, any organic beings would die from radiation exposure within hours." Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez spoke up. "I can redirect power from non-essential systems to strengthen our shields in that specific radiation band. It won't be comfortable, but we should survive." "Then that's our route," Eric decided. "How long to make the modifications?" 48 hours if my team works non-stop," Maria replied. "You have 36, Eric said. "The Karsk aren't waiting." The next day and a half was a blur of activity. The crew worked tirelessly to prepare the ship. Additional sensor equipment was installed. The shield system was modified to block the specific radiation from the Crimson Nebula. Emergency supplies were loaded. 36 hours later, the Defiance departed Luna Station. The ship moved at maximum speed toward the edge of conquered space. Once they crossed that border, they would be in hostile territory with no backup. Last, chance to change your mind, Ambassador, Eric said to Kretal as they approached the border. The Volmar diplomat's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. My presence here is important, Captain. The Concord must understand what the Karsk are planning. Besides, I find I have developed a certain confidence in this unusual vessel. Eric smiled. High praise indeed coming from you. The Defiance crossed into Karsk space. Immediately, all crew members went to battle stations. Lieutenant Olivia Chen monitored the tactical systems continuously, watching for any sign of Karsk patrols. They approached the Crimson Nebula, the radiation alarms began to sound. Radiation levels rising, Science Officer Stephanie Morris reported. Our modified shields are holding, but just barely. How long can we stay in the nebula? Eric asked. 3 hours at most, Stephanie replied. After that, even with our shields, we'll start to see radiation sickness. Navigator Blackwood, how long to cross the nebula? Julia checked her calculations. 2 hours and 40 minutes at our current speed, Captain. That doesn't leave much room for error, Commander Daniel. Right noted. Then we won't make errors, Eric replied simply. The Defiance entered the glowing red clouds of the nebula. The view from the bridge was both beautiful and terrifying. Swirls of crimson gas surrounded the ship, occasionally flashing with energy discharges. Inside the ship, the crew could feel the effects of the radiation even through the shields. People reported headaches and nausea. The alien observers suffered more severely, their physiologies less adapted to radiation than humans. 1 hour down, Stephanie announced after what felt like an eternity. Radiation levels are still increasing. Shields at 63% effectiveness. Engineering reports the shield modifications are degrading faster than expected, Communications Officer Alan Foster added. Chief Rodriguez is trying to stabilize them. Eric clenched his jaw. Keep going. We're committed now. Another hour passed, the situation grew worse. Several crew members had to report to the medical bay, overcome by radiation sickness. The ship itself was showing signs of strain, with various systems flickering or shutting down. Shields at 31%, Stephanie reported, her voice weak. 1 more hour to go. We can make it, Eric insisted, though he was fighting nausea himself. Just when it seemed they might not survive the crossing, Navigator Julia Blackwood called out, Captain, I can see the edge of the nebula. We're almost through. The crew found new strength. Everyone focused on their tasks, pushing through the pain and sickness. Finally, the Defiance emerged from the Crimson Nebula. The red clouds fell behind them, and the stars became clear again. All stop, Eric ordered. Let's assess our situation. The news wasn't good. The ship had taken serious damage. The modified shields were almost completely burned out. Half the crew was in the medical bay with radiation sickness. But they had made it through what the Concorde considered impassable space. Begin full sensor sweep, Eric ordered. Let's find out what the Karsk are up to. Science Officer Stephanie Morris, despite her own illness, managed the sensor array. Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the Karsk home system. It matches what little data we have on the planet killer weapon. Can you get more detailed information? Yes, but we need to get closer, Stephanie replied. Eric considered their options. The ship was damaged. The crew was sick, but they had come too far to turn back now. Set course for the Karsk home system, he ordered. Stealth mode. We need that information. As the Defiance moved carefully toward its target, Eric knew they were heading into even greater danger. But humanity had joined the Galactic Concord to make a difference. And sometimes making a difference meant breaking the rules and surviving to tell about it. What they would find in the heart of Karsk territory, none of them could guess. But the fate of entire worlds might depend on their success. The Defiance moved silently through Karsk space. The ship's stealth systems were working at full capacity, making it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. In the medical bay, Dr. Susan White worked tirelessly to treat the crew members suffering from radiation sickness. Most were recovering slowly. On the bridge, Captain Eric Martinez studied the sensor data that Science Officer Stephanie Morris had collected. The Karsk planet-killer weapon was even more dangerous than they had feared. It could destroy an entire world in minutes by destabilizing the planet's core. "We need to get this information back to the Conquered," Eric said. "But first, we need more details on the weapon's weaknesses." The Defiance crept closer to the main Karsk fleet gathering. They were taking an enormous risk, but the information was too valuable to leave without. "Captain," Lieutenant Olivia Chen called from Tactical, "I'm detecting a massive energy buildup in the Karsk flagship. I think they're preparing to test the weapon again." Eric looked at the sensor readings. "What's their target?" Stephanie checked her instruments. "It looks like an uninhabited moon in this system. They're probably using it for a demonstration. This is our chance to gather complete data on the weapon while it's active," Eric decided. "Take us closer, but maintain stealth protocols." The Defiance edged nearer to the Karsk fleet. They were now close enough to see the ships with the naked eye through the bridge viewports. The Karsk flagship was enormous, at least 20 times the size of the Defiance. "Energy level still rising," Olivia reported. "They'll fire the weapon in approximately 5 minutes." Eric turned to Communications Officer Alan Foster. "Record everything, every frequency, every energy signature. We need complete data." The bridge crew worked silently, focusing on their tasks. They knew how important this information was. Billions of lives might depend on what they learned here. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. "We've been detected," Olivia shouted. "Multiple Karsk ships are changing course to intercept us." Eric didn't hesitate. "Send the data we've collected so far to the Conquered on an encrypted channel, then prepare for emergency jump." "The jump drive is still damaged from the nebula crossing," Commander Daniel Wright reminded him. "We can't make a full FTL jump." Eric nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to fight our way out." The Defiance's weapons came online as the first Karsk ships approached. Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez spoke over the intercom from engineering. "Captain, I have an idea," she said. "We can modify our jump drive to create a subspace distortion. It won't get us all the way home, but it might get us past the Karsk blockade." "What kind of modification?" Eric asked. "The kind that breaks every rule in the book," Maria replied. "It's never been tried before." Ambassador Kretal, who had recovered enough from his radiation sickness to return to the bridge, looked alarmed. "The mathematics for such a maneuver are impossible," he protested. "The energy requirements alone would tear this ship apart." "Then we'll just have to bend the math a little," Maria replied confidently. "I need 20 minutes. "We don't have 20 minutes, Eric said, looking at the approaching Karsk ships. "You have 10. 10 it is," Maria agreed, and the channel closed. The next 10 minutes were the longest of Eric's life. The Defiance engaged the nearest Karsk vessels, using its unconventional tactics to avoid the worst of their attacks. The damaged ship couldn't match its previous performance, but the crew's experience and the ship's unusual design still gave them an edge. "Shield strength down to 42%, Olivia reported after a particularly heavy hit. "We can't take much more of this." "Engineering to bridge," Maria's voice came over the comm. "The modifications are ready, but I have to warn you. This is completely untested. It could work, or it could vaporize us instantly." "Those are better odds than we have staying here," Eric replied. "Do it." The bridge crew secured themselves in their seats. Ambassador Kretal closed all 4 of his eyes, perhaps saying a prayer to whatever gods the Volmar believed in. "Activating modified jump drive in 3, 2, 1. Maria counted down. The Defiance shuddered violently. Strange lights flickered across the hull. The view screen showed space itself seeming to bend around the ship. For a moment, Eric thought they had failed. The shaking grew worse. Warning alarms screamed from every console. Then suddenly there was a flash of blinding light, and the ship lurched forward. When the light faded, the Karsk fleet was gone. Instead, the view screens showed, "Open space, where are we?" Eric asked, his voice hoarse. Navigator Julia Blackwood checked her instruments. We're on the edge of conquered space," she said in amazement. "The jump worked. We traveled over 50 light-years in an instant. The bridge crew cheered. Even Ambassador Kretal seemed impressed. The Concord engineers will want a detailed explanation of how you manage this, he said to Maria over the comm. I'm not sure I can explain it, Maria admitted. We just did what humans always do, improvise when there's no other choice. 2 days later, the battered Defiance limped back to Luna Station. The data they had collected on the Karsk planet killer was immediately sent to Concord High Command. Within hours, scientists and engineers were working on countermeasures. Admiral Gregory Peters personally greeted the crew when they docked. You've done the impossible, he told them. Not only did you get the information we needed, but you've also proven beyond any doubt that humanity's approach to shipbuilding and combat has merit. High Commander Zilthran of the Concord Defense Fleet was also present. The tall blue alien bowed slightly to Captain Martinez, a sign of great respect from his species. The Concord Council has reviewed your mission report, Zilthran said. Based on your findings, we are implementing immediate changes to our fleet design and tactics. Moreover, we have approved the construction of 50 new ships based on the Defiance's design principles. Eric was stunned. 50 ships? Yes. Admiral Peters confirmed with a smile. The rule-breaker class, they're calling them, and every captain will be trained by you and your crew. 1 month later, the combined Concord Defense Fleet gathered in the Epsilon sector. Intelligence reports indicated that the Karsk Dominion had committed the majority of their fleet to a decisive strike against the Concord homeworlds. The Defiance, repaired and upgraded, was at the center of the human contingent, 50 new ships built with the same unconventional design principles. Each was commanded by a captain personally trained by Eric Martinez and his original crew. Before the battle, Admiral Peters addressed the human captains over a secure channel. Remember, we fight differently. We think differently. That's not a weakness. It's our greatest strength. The Karsk fleet appeared exactly where the intelligence reports had predicted. Their numbers were overwhelming. The planet killer weapon was positioned at the center of their formation, protected by layers of warships. The battle that followed would be studied in conquered military academies for centuries to come. The human vessels moved in patterns that defied conventional combat logic, drawing Karsk fire away from the more vulnerable conquered ships. They exploited weaknesses that no one else had thought to look for, using maneuvers that seasoned alien commanders considered suicidal. The Defiance itself, leading the charge, sustained heavy damage but remained operational far beyond what should have been possible. When the battle ended, the Karsk fleet was in retreat for the first time in recorded history. The planet killer had been destroyed. The cost had been high, 12 human ships lost with their crews, but the alternative would have been the fall of the conquered, and eventually Earth itself. In the aftermath, the Galactic Concord revised its military doctrine for the first time in 5,000 years. A new division was created led by Admiral Peters and Captain Martinez, dedicated to alternative strategic development, a polite term for learning to think more like humans. The Defiance itself was preserved as a monument orbiting Earth, a reminder that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy might not be their technology or their resources, but their stubborn refusal to accept impossibility. And across the stars, when other species spoke of humans, they did so with a new respect, because humans had proven that sometimes breaking the rules was the only way to survive.